In Nauvoo, there's an unusual home surrounded by a vineyard. They're both reminders of one group's search for a utopia.
This house was the Mix house, and Mr. Mix was the mayor of Nauvoo. He was a friend of our ancestors, the French. This house represents something tangible for people to see and to understand what we're trying to preserve. And we have a somewhat difficult task. We're trying to preserve a concept, an ideal.
A society whose story begins with the end of another's. In 1844, Mormon leader and founder Joseph Smith was murdered at the Carthage jail. Eventually, the church and its members left Nauvoo, leaving behind lands and homes that could be cheaply purchased. The Icarians heard of the exodus and moved to Illinois.
The Icarians were a group of people unified by a man named Cabet. Cabet was a prominent French lawyer, politician, diplomat, and he wrote a book, The Voyage to Icaria, which was an idea that you would go to a wonderful land and you would live the wonderful life. And this book was published, maybe 200,000 copies, through France, England, Western Europe, and it was very well received. And many of the people thought that this should be actually put into action. So they persuaded Cabet to set up a journey to the New World, and that they would follow and they would establish a utopia society here in the United States.
On the same grounds where Smith and his followers had built their temple, the Icarians established their commune, which eventually grew to about 1,500 members.
They very much lived in a communal sort of situation. The families put their children in a nursery during the day, and the mother and the father both worked, and they had a whole series of buildings, workshops, apartment houses, and so they lived as a group. Cabet had his own home with his family.
Each family received the same furnishings for their apartments, a table and 4 uniquely designed chairs, 2 of which are on display at the museum today. Also, there's this portable desk, which was taken into the fields to record the productivity of individual members.
They stayed together about 50 or 60 years in one way or another. Problems occurred in Nauvoo as the years went by because of different values. Cabet had very strong feelings against tobacco, against alcohol. And as time went on, some of the members of the commune became rather liberalized. And so his values were being shunned. And ultimately, the group split in 2. He and his followers went to St. Louis.
Afterwards, some of those who stayed behind began growing grapes to make wine. Today, those vines are part of the oldest winery in the state of Illinois. And across the street is a house that has become the repository for Icarian history.
There were around 400 utopian societies that came over, mostly from Europe, in the last century. And among those would be the French Icarians. Almost all of those societies have failed to continue on, but their value has some purpose. And we thought it was important to get it written down while we still could, because some of us have long life ancestors that told us stories. So in about 3 generations of memory, we're back there.